The microspecies asked for help until the humans said, sure, and declared war on 3-star systems. Then they learned that humans interpret help as solve completely and permanently regardless of political complexity or collateral implications. Let me tell you about the day I discovered that asking a human for assistance is like activating a doomsday weapon that operates according to its own targeting parameters and won't stop until it decides the problem is adequately resolved. Spoiler alert, human definitions of adequately resolved include regime change and systemic restructuring. My name is Ambassador Quillix of the Plenary Collective, and I have negotiated diplomatic solutions for 31 standard cycles. I have mediated disputes between 67 different species, prevented 14 wars through careful compromise, and specialized in protecting the interests of smaller civilizations navigating the complex politics of galactic power structures. Point is, I know diplomacy. I understand how to leverage limited resources into political influence, how to form alliances that protect vulnerable species, how to navigate disputes with larger civilizations without triggering disproportionate responses. I can assess political situations and develop strategies that maximize outcomes for my clients while minimizing risk. Until I asked a human for help. The plenary are small, both as individuals and as a civilization. We average 43 centimeters in height, mass approximately 8 kilograms, and our entire population across 4 colony worlds numbers only 340 million. We're not militarily powerful, not economically dominant, not politically influential by galactic standards. We survive through careful diplomacy, strategic alliances, and staying beneath the notice of larger civilizations who might view us as obstacles or resources. For 3 centuries, this strategy had worked adequately. We maintained peaceful relations, contributed to galactic trade networks, avoided conflicts that could threaten our survival. We were successful by the metrics that mattered for small species, we continued to exist unmolested. Then the Vraxian Empire expanded into our sector. The Vraxians were a major power, aggressive expansionists with significant military capabilities and political influence across hundreds of systems. They had decided that the Kelver sector, which included 2 of our 4 colony worlds, was strategically valuable for resource extraction and military positioning. Their initial approach was diplomatic, offering to integrate plenary colonies into the Vraxian economic sphere. Integration meant Vraxian control of our resources, Vraxian military occupation, and effective loss of sovereignty. We declined politely, citing existing treaties and our status as an independent civilization under Galactic Council protection. The Vraxians responded by increasing pressure. Economic sanctions, military exercises near our territories, diplomatic isolation as they convinced other species that the plenary were obstructionist, and refusing reasonable cooperation, classic tactics that had worked for them repeatedly against other small civilizations. We tried every diplomatic avenue available. Filed complaints with the Galactic Council, which issued symbolic condemnations that the Vraxians ignored. Sought support from allied species, who expressed sympathy but declined to intervene against a major power. Attempted to negotiate compromises, which the Vraxians rejected while increasing their demands. Within 6 months, we were facing inevitable military action. Vraxian fleets were positioning near our colonies, their rhetoric had shifted from integration to necessary security measures, and intelligence suggested they would initiate occupation within weeks. We were losing our worlds, and no one was willing to help. We need assistance, I told the Plenary Council during an emergency session. Military assistance from someone powerful enough that the Vraxians will reconsider their aggression. Who would help us? Councillor Threm asked. We have nothing to offer major powers. We're too small, too insignificant. Every civilization we've approached has declined or ignored our requests. There is one option, I said carefully. The humans, the council chamber went silent. Humans were relatively new to galactic politics, only been spacefaring for maybe 20 years, but they had already developed a reputation. Aggressive, unpredictable, willing to intervene in situations that more established civilizations avoided. They had defended a mining colony against pirate raids with disproportionate force. They had provided military support to a trade dispute that resulted in 3 destroyed pirate vessels and a completely restructured regional security framework. Humans are dangerous, Councillor Vress said. They don't follow normal diplomatic protocols. They escalate situations unpredictably. The Vraxians are going to occupy our worlds within weeks, I countered. Diplomatic protocols have failed. We need someone willing to act, and humans seem very willing to act when they perceive injustice. You're suggesting we invite chaos to prevent occupation, Threm said. Yes, I acknowledged. Controlled chaos directed at the Vraxians rather than uncontrolled loss of our sovereignty. It's a risk, but the alternative is certain defeat. The Council authorized me to approach the human diplomatic mission. I scheduled a meeting with Ambassador Sarah Rodriguez, the human representative assigned to our sector, expecting lengthy negotiations about what assistance might be available and what price humans would demand. Ambassador Rodriguez, I began formally, the plenary collective faces existential threat from Vraxian expansion. We have attempted all diplomatic solutions without success. We are seeking military assistance to deter Vraxian aggression against our colony worlds. Okay, Rodriguez said immediately. We'll help, I blinked, which is difficult for plenary since our optical organs don't have lids, but I managed to convey surprise. You'll help. Just like that. Without negotiating terms or discussing what assistance entails. You asked for help, Rodriguez said, as if this was obvious. You're a small civilization being bullied by a larger power. The Vraxians are violating your sovereignty through military intimidation. That's unacceptable. So yes, we'll help. What form would this help take? We're going to make the Vraxians leave you alone, Rodriguez said. Permanently. Give me 48 hours to coordinate with Earth and our regional fleet. We'll handle this how? I asked, suddenly worried about what human intervention would look like. Whatever way works, Rodriguez said. The goal is ensuring the Vraxians stop threatening you. The methodology is flexible depending on their response to our initial approach. That should have been my warning. The phrase, whatever way works, from a human should trigger immediate concern about proportionality and scope. But I was desperate, and Rodriguez seemed confident, and I convinced myself that human assistance would be measured and appropriate. I was catastrophically wrong on multiple levels. The human response began 36 hours later when a fleet of 40 human vessels entered the Kelver sector and positioned themselves between Vraxian forces and our colony worlds. Not near our worlds, between them and the Vraxians, a clear military posture that announced protective intent. This is Admiral Chen of the Terran Defense Fleet, a message broadcast across all channels. We have received reports of Vraxian military intimidation against the plenary collective. The plenary are under Terran protection as of this moment. Any Vraxian military action against plenary territories will be interpreted as an act of war against Earth and responded to accordingly. The Vraxian response was immediate and outraged. Human forces have no authority in this sector. The plenary situation is an internal matter being resolved through legitimate diplomatic channels. Remove your vessels immediately or face consequences. The plenary are an independent civilization, Admiral Chen replied. There's nothing internal about a major power threatening military occupation of sovereign worlds. Your diplomatic channels involve military fleets positioning for invasion. That's not diplomacy, that's aggression. And we don't tolerate aggression against species who ask for our help. You are interfering in matters beyond your authority and understanding, the Vraxian commander responded. This is your final warning. Withdraw or face military response. No, Admiral Chen said simply. You withdraw. You have 12 hours to remove all military assets from plenary space and issue formal acknowledgement of plenary sovereignty. If you don't comply, we'll remove your assets for you and ensure you can't threaten anyone in this sector again. I listened to this exchange in growing horror. The humans weren't proposing diplomatic solutions or offering to mediate. They were issuing ultimatums to a major galactic power backed by immediate military threat. This was going to start a war. The Vraxians apparently agreed because they opened fire 20 minutes later. 3 Vraxian cruisers targeted the human fleet with plasma weapons and missile systems, a coordinated strike designed to cripple the human force and demonstrate Vraxian military superiority. The human fleet scattered, evaded most of the incoming fire, and returned fire with weapons that shouldn't have been that effective. Kinetic railguns that punched through Vraxian shields, missile systems with targeting that seemed impossible to evade, and some kind of electronic warfare that disabled Vraxian fleet coordination. The engagement lasted 7 minutes. All 3 Vraxian cruisers were destroyed or disabled. The human fleet suffered minor damage to 2 vessels, nothing critical. Then Admiral Chen broadcast again, this time with an edge in her voice that made every species monitoring the situation very nervous. That was your warning shot. You have 11 hours and 53 minutes remaining in your withdrawal window. Any additional hostile action will be met with escalating response. We are very good at escalating. The Vraxian Empire could have withdrawn at that point. Should have withdrawn, really, given the clear demonstration of human military capability. Instead, they escalated, bringing in reinforcements from 2 adjacent sectors, a fleet of over 100 vessels converging on the Kelver sector for a full military engagement. Ambassador Quilix Rodriguez contacted me 6 hours after the initial engagement. We need to discuss expanding our protective mandate. Expanding how? I asked, terrified of the answer. The Vraxians are bringing significant forces to this sector. Defending your worlds is feasible, but it's reactive. They'll keep trying, keep pressuring, keep looking for opportunities. We need to address the root problem, which is their ability to threaten you. As long as the Vraxian Empire has the military capacity and political will to target the plenary, you're not safe. So we need to reduce their capacity and eliminate their will. That sounds like you're proposing to attack the Vraxian Empire directly. That's exactly what I'm proposing, Rodriguez said. Targeted strikes against military infrastructure in 3 key systems, simultaneous diplomatic pressure for regime change, and economic sanctions that make continued aggression economically unviable. We dismantle their ability to project power into this sector while making it politically costly for their leadership to continue threatening smaller civilizations. I felt my respiratory system struggle. You're proposing to declare war on 3-star systems because they threatened us. I'm proposing to solve your problem permanently, Rodriguez corrected. You asked for help. Help means ensuring the Vraxians can't threaten you again, not just pushing them back temporarily. If we only defend your worlds, they'll wait for us to leave and then attack again. If we eliminate their capacity for aggression in this sector, you're permanently safe. This is insane. The Galactic Council will never approve military action of that scale. We're not asking the Galactic Council for approval, Rodriguez said. We're acting on request from an allied species facing existential threat. The Council had its chance to help you through diplomatic channels. They failed. So we're using available methods that actually work. This will destabilize the entire sector. The sector is already destabilized by Vraxian aggression, Rodriguez countered. We're just changing who's doing the destabilizing and what the endpoint looks like. When we're done, small civilizations won't have to fear major powers invading them because they'll know someone will respond with disproportionate force against aggressors. That's stable, just differently stable than the current system. She made it sound reasonable. That was the terrifying part. She described declaring war on a major galactic power as solving a problem, using the same tone someone might use to discuss fixing a malfunctioning door. What followed over the next 72 hours was the most intense military operation I had ever witnessed. Human fleets struck simultaneously at 3 Vraxian military installations, destroying orbital defenses, disabling fleet assets, and crippling their capacity to project military power. They broadcasted demands for Vraxian withdrawal from plenary space and formal recognition of plenary sovereignty. They coordinated with dissident Vraxian factions to pressure the Empire's leadership. They released evidence of Vraxian war crimes against other small civilizations to galactic media. They did everything simultaneously, creating cascading pressure that the Vraxian Empire couldn't effectively counter. This is beyond military action, I told Rodriguez during an emergency meeting. You're conducting regime change operations. We're ensuring permanent resolution, Rodriguez said. Military victory without political change just means we fight again later. We're establishing conditions where Vraxian leadership concludes that aggressive expansion is too costly and alternatives are more beneficial. That requires political pressure alongside military action. You're remaking the regional power structure. We're correcting an imbalanced power structure, Rodriguez said. The Vraxians had too much power with too little accountability. We're introducing accountability. When we're done, they'll have reasons to cooperate rather than conquer, incentives for peace rather than aggression. That's better for everyone, including them. Eventually, the Vraxian Empire capitulated after 5 days of human operations. They withdrew all military assets from plenary space, issued formal recognition of plenary sovereignty, and agreed to reparations for the costs of militarization we had incurred defending against their threats. Their government underwent significant restructuring as internal factions used the military defeat to push for policy changes. The regional political balance shifted dramatically as other major powers reassessed their own aggressive policies in light of human willingness to respond with overwhelming force. You solved our problem, I told Rodriguez during the final diplomatic meeting. Yes, she agreed. That's what you asked us to do. I asked for help deterring Vraxian aggression. You declared war on 3-star systems and restructured regional politics. Those things aren't different, Rodriguez said. Deterring aggression temporarily doesn't solve the underlying problem. We solved the underlying problem. The Vraxians can't threaten you anymore because they lack the military capacity and political will. Other potential aggressors watched what happened and concluded that threatening small civilizations under human protection is a bad idea. You're safe now, permanently safe, because we addressed root causes rather than symptoms, at significant cost to galactic stability, at significant cost to an unjust status quo, Rodriguez corrected. The previous stability was built on small civilizations being vulnerable to major powers who faced no consequences for aggression. That's not stability, that's systemic injustice. We disrupted that system. The new equilibrium will be more stable because it includes accountability mechanisms for major powers. You're describing warfare as establishing justice, we're describing warfare as one tool among many for establishing justice, Rodriguez said. Diplomacy is better when it works. Economic pressure is better when it's sufficient. Military force is the option when other tools fail and injustice persists. The Vraxians ignored diplomacy, so we used force. Not because we wanted to fight, but because fighting was the remaining option for protecting you. She paused. You asked for help. We helped. The methodology was more comprehensive than you expected, but the outcome is exactly what you needed. You're safe, your sovereignty is recognized, and the threat is permanently resolved. Isn't that what you wanted? It was. I couldn't deny that. The plenary were safer than we had been in decades. The Vraxian threat was completely neutralized. Other major powers were treating us with new respect. Humans had solved our problem exactly as Rodriguez had promised. They had just done it by declaring war on 3-star systems and restructuring regional politics rather than through the limited deterrence I had imagined. Over the following years, I watched human intervention become a pattern across the galaxy. Small civilizations facing threats would approach humans for help. Humans would say, sure, and then solve problems with thoroughness that often surprised everyone involved. Sometimes this meant military action, sometimes diplomatic pressure, sometimes economic restructuring, but always it meant comprehensive solutions rather than temporary fixes. Why do you intervene so readily? I asked Rodriguez during a later conversation. Why commit to helping species you barely know? Because we can, Rodriguez said simply. Because we have the capacity to help and we see injustice happening. Earth's history taught us what happens when powerful nations bully weaker ones without consequences. We spent centuries being both the bullies and the bullied, learning how systems of oppression work and how they're dismantled. Now we're in a position to prevent that dynamic in galactic politics, so we do even when it means warfare. Especially when it means warfare, Rodriguez said. We don't choose warfare eagerly, but we don't avoid it when it's necessary. The Vraxians were going to occupy your worlds. Diplomatic solutions had failed. Military intervention was the remaining option. We intervened. That's not complicated morality, that's just responding to clear injustice with effective tools. Most species would consider the costs too high. Most species haven't spent their entire history fighting each other and learning exactly how much warfare costs, Rodriguez said. We know the costs intimately. We also know the costs of allowing aggression to go unchallenged. Sometimes the second cost is higher than the first. When that's true, we choose warfare over inaction. She looked at me directly. You asked for help expecting us to provide limited deterrence, maybe some military posturing that would make the Vraxians reconsider. We provided comprehensive solution that eliminated the threat permanently. That's not us misunderstanding your request. That's us understanding what actual help looks like and being willing to provide it. The microspecies asked for help until the human said, sure, and declared war on 3-star systems. Then everyone learned that human assistance comes with scope that exceeds expectations and methodology that prioritizes permanent solutions over temporary fixes. You don't ask humans for help unless you're prepared for them to solve your problem completely, which may involve warfare, regime change, and systemic restructuring of regional politics. My name is Ambassador Quillix, and I asked a human for help protecting my civilization from aggressive expansion by a major power. The human declared war on 3-star systems, defeated Vraxian military forces, pressured regime change, and restructured regional power dynamics to ensure the threat was permanently eliminated. I got exactly what I needed, delivered through methods I didn't anticipate, with thoroughness I didn't request but definitely required. That's human assistance, comprehensive, effective, sometimes alarming, but reliably successful at solving problems rather than just postponing them. They said, sure, like it was simple, then made it simple through application of overwhelming force and political pressure that transformed an existential threat into historical footnote. The microspecies asked for help, and the human helped so thoroughly that the word help became permanently associated with phrases like regime change and military restructuring. That's not misunderstanding the request. That's understanding that real help means solving problems permanently rather than temporarily, and being willing to do whatever that requires regardless of complexity or political sensitivity. You ask a human for help, you get help. You also get everything that comes with help when humans define what help means. And humans define help as comprehensive permanent resolution delivered through whatever means prove necessary. That's either reassuring or terrifying depending on whether you're the one asking for help or the one creating problems that require helping.